I usually manufacture and sell fishing rods. Since I handle everything from design to production, I make many variations of rods. A 0.2mm airbrush has become an essential tool for creating fine patterns. In marble painting, while the texture creates the details, the graininess of the mist shows up directly in the gradations. This is why high-quality fine mist performance is truly indispensable. Until now, I have been a loyal user of Tamiya's flagship model, the SPRAY-WORK HG Airbrush 3 Superfine. However, I heard that the reputation of the Gaahleri Mobius 0.2mm is incredibly high. In this video, I will be comparing the Gaahleri Mobius 0.2mm with the Tamiya Superfine 0.2mm. What do you think? It is really stylish how they printed the exploded view on the back of the box. Dear customer, the instruction manual. It comes with replacement seals. The white one is a Teflon seal made of fluororesin and the black ones are rubber O-rings. While most manufacturers discourage disassembly, including these deep internal consumables is a subtle way for the maker to encourage proper maintenance. I think that is a wonderful touch. In rod building, I mainly work with 2-part urethane, so I must disassemble and clean the airbrush after every single use. This is a bit different from building plastic model, because even the slightest residue cannot be tolerated. Backflushing alone is not enough. Urethane hardens rapidly due to a chemical reaction with the hardener. In hot weather it can solidify so quickly that the next time you use it, the main lever is stuck. By then, even soaking it in cleaner is too late. I experienced this once when I first started using airbrushes. That is an expensive mistake that can cost you over $150. That is why full disassembly and cleaning are mandatory every time. I will explain the cleaning process in detail later while comparing the Tamiya Superfine and the Mobius. First, let's look at the basics of the Mobius 02. It is a double-action handpiece. Pressing the main lever releases air and pulling it back releases paint. The correct sequence is press down, pull back, return forward and release up. You release the air first, then the paint, then you stop the paint flow before finally stopping the air. This ensures that any paint at the tip is blown away by the air, physically preventing splatters. Since this motion can be tricky, it is common practice to spray a burst of air away from your project first to clear any residue before you start painting. It is called double action because one lever provides two independent controls, rather than struggling with the splatters common in single action brushes. I recommend that beginners start with a double action and master the technique. As a side note, if you are truly struggling with splatters, you should switch to a double action trigger type instead of a standard handpiece. Especially when moving the airbrush continuously from side to side like in the video, handpieces tend to lead to rougher handling and more splatters. In contrast, the double action trigger type ensures a fixed sequence for air and paint release, making it structurally resistant to splatters. Even if your operation is a bit rough, therefore, due to its design, you should choose a double action trigger type, which ensures that the air and paint are released in the correct order. The design is very cool. The handle features a skeletonized design, allowing you to see at a glance how much the needle stopper is tightened. Let's try tightening the needle stopper all the way. Now, the main lever won't move and no paint will come out. As you loosen the stopper, the lever gains more travel and more paint is released. In short, you use the needle stopper to limit the maximum paint flow. It is an essential feature for fine detail work. Additionally, there's a knob to adjust the tension or weight of the main lever. This can also be adjusted without disassembling the brush. Tightening it makes the lever feel heavier. A heavier lever often provides better control. Conversely, loosening it makes the lever easier to pull. It is easier on your finger but harder to control. This is useful when you want a light pull, while using the needle stopper to limit the travel. Next is the air control knob. This allows you to adjust the air volume directly on the airbrush. You might wonder how this is different from using a regulator on your compressor, but it actually achieves the same goal. They are functionally synonymous. Whether you reduce pressure at the regulator or restrict the volume at the knob, the nozzle is the final point that determines the pressure. Adjusting it just before the nozzle does not change the physics. The real value of this knob is the convenience of adjusting the air right at your fingertips. The proper way to use it is to set your compressor a bit higher and then fine-tune the pressure using the knob on the airbrush. Now let's test the fine line performance, which is the specialty of a 0.2mm nozzle. Since I want the finest line possible, I will adjust the needle stopper according to the air pressure. First, at 0.03 megapascals. As expected, the flow is quite intermittent. Next, 0.05 megapascals. This is decent, it doesn't feel too bad. Typically for fine lines you will want at least 0.05 megapascals or higher. However, as you restrict the paint, you might find you need more air pressure. Now let's try 0.1 megapascals. Even when thinned to a watery consistency, urethane has high surface tension. Unlike lacquer, this can cause slight feathering or spidering. 0.12 megapascals. I see, it seems like 0.1 to 0.12 megapascals is the sweet spot. So, let's compare the fine line performance of both brushes. This is a flagship showdown between the 0.2mm models from Gaahleri and Tamiya. Since I am using urethane, there are limits, but I pushed the settings to the absolute limit to see how fine they could spray. The result is that the Tamiya is slightly thinner. However, the atomization of the mist is incredibly fine and beautiful for both. At least for rod building, you would almost never feel a difference in practical use. I wonder how it compares in the world of plastic models. Yeah, by the way, for those who usually build plastic models, the results might look different depending on the paint. So let me show you how it sprays with lacquer. Wow, that is impressive. Lacquer is truly amazing. The finish is just beautiful. So this is the world modelers enjoy all the time. For fishing rods, since they bend and are exposed to UV rays, urethane is our only real option. Still, the Mobius sprays lacquer beautifully. I wondered why there was a difference in fine spraying despite having the same nozzle caliber. So I investigated to see if there was a physical difference in the nozzle diameter. As expected, the Tamiya Superfine has a slightly smaller nozzle diameter. This solves the mystery. It is a difference in nozzle size, not a difference in performance. This makes it even more mysterious how the Mobius can produce such a fine mist, doesn't it? Perhaps it's the spiral-shaped McNozzle design, which improves atomization. I'm not sure of the exact physics, but the performance is certainly there. We are talking about a very high level of competition here. Now, let's move on to maintenance. This is the nozzle for the Tamiya SPRAY-WORK HG 0.2mm. Applying sealant to this tiny rice grain-sized nozzle to prevent air leaks is quite the task. It requires intense concentration. It is so easy to accidentally fumble and drop it, which can be a nightmare. If you drop it, you might never find it again, so you have to be laser focused. Honestly, it is a job nobody really enjoys. Now look at the Gaahleri nozzle. First, it is much larger, it is much harder to drop, and it has a built-in Teflon seal. This design handles the sealing for you, so you do not need to apply messy sealants every time. You just place the nozzle in the cap and tighten it. The Teflon creates a perfect seal to prevent leaks. For someone like me who does full maintenance after every use, this design is a lifesaver. Furthermore, Teflon is incredibly resistant to solvents. It won't deteriorate, even if you soak it in tool cleaner or acetone. In contrast, black O-rings are made of rubber-based material. They are vulnerable to harsh solvents. If you soak them in acetone, they will absorb the liquid and swell up in less than 10 minutes. That is why you should generally avoid soaking rubber O-rings in tool cleaner or acetone. Now let's perform an extreme taste that would make any manufacturer cringe. I will soak these seals for 10 minutes in acetone, the ultimate enemy of rubber. On the left is the Gaahleri O-ring, and on the right is the Tamiya joint ring. Acetone is the arch nemesis of rubber and can easily render it unusable. With O-rings this thin, a 30-minute soak would destroy them. Let's try 10 minutes. To observe their resilience, I have chosen rings of similar sizes to keep the test as fair as possible. In just 10 minutes, the solvent will reach the core of the rubber. Look at that, they have swollen up significantly. Here is the real test. We will measure the quality by seeing how well they return to their original shape. It is a brutal experiment, isn't it? Let's leave them for 1 hour. 1 hour has passed. They seem to have mostly returned to their original size. The rubber quality from both manufacturers seems quite good. That is a relief. However, you might wonder why all O-rings aren't just made of Teflon, but there is a reason for that. Rubber O-rings are elastic and can stretch. Their advantage is that they spring back to their original shape even after being compressed. Teflon, on the other hand, is much harder. Once it is compressed, it stays that way and does not return to its original shape. Both materials have specific roles that they are best suited for. The placement of these seals affects how you maintain each brush, so let's dive deep into the maintenance process. First, let me introduce the tools you'll need. These are Kim wipes. They are lint-free wipes designed specifically for maintenance. We'll also use standard paper towels. Paper towels are a bit stiff, while Kim wipes are much softer. And a glass jar for soaking the parts. This contains pure acetone. Next, a solvent-resistant bottle with a precision tip. This is for the back flushing process. While dedicated cleaners like Mr. Tool Cleaner Kai are ideal, I personally use acetone for health reasons. Acetone is actually a substance produced and metabolized by the human body, making it much safer to handle than most industrial tool cleaners. Let's quickly summarize the difference between the two. Tool cleaner is excellent at lifting paint from surfaces, which is perfect for back flushing. It is a cocktail of various solvents designed to react with almost any type of paint, whether it is urethane, lacquer or acrylic. However, it often contains toluene and xylene, which can damage the nervous system if inhaled or touched. In contrast, acetone is a single component solvent. It breaks down paint at a molecular level. It also completely dissolves oils and the white residue that tool cleaners sometimes leave behind on metal. So, debating which one is better is missing the point. The ultimate method I have found is to strip the bulk of the paint with tool cleaner, then use acetone to dissolve every last bit of residue. Keep in mind that acetone destroys rubber, so tool cleaner is slightly gentler in that regard. If you only build plastic models, tool cleaner alone might be enough. But if you're working with urethane, I highly recommend using acetone as well. Back to the process. I will refer to it as tool cleaner from here on, as it is best for the initial back flushing. Always wear a solvent-rated mask and gloves, and use a proper cleaning kit. I use the Tamiya kit myself. The brushes are great, but I actually skip the grease, that comes with it. Instead, I use specialized maintenance oil. This oil is specially formulated so it won't repel paint. Many brands make this, but I prefer the one from Zest Fishing. There's a specific reason I use oil instead of the recommended grease, which I'll explain as we go. I will use an 8mm nut driver and a pair of tweezers. These are essential. I personally use Hosan 0.6mm tweezers because they are strong and very versatile. Let's start the maintenance with a back flush. Add cleaner to the cup, cover it with a Kim wipe to prevent splashing, block the air cap with your finger and pull the lever to make it bubble backward. Back flushing is an incredibly important step. Refill the cleaner several times and keep back flushing until it's clean. It looks like the color is no longer bleeding onto the wipe. Now that the flush is done, let's take it apart. Remember this rule: disassemble from the back and reassemble from the front. Starting from the back, unscrew the handle first. Then loosen the needle chucking nut. Carefully pull out the needle. Once the needle is out, remove the chucking nut as well. As you can see, the tip of the needle chucking guide is open like this. Always loosen the nut before removing the needle to prevent the tip from catching and getting damaged. Next, remove the adjustment knob. Take out the spring, then use the 8mm nut driver to remove the spring case. Take it off. The needle chucking guide, the main lever, and then remove the air valve. The paint cup. And use the 8mm driver again for the air control knob. Now for the air cap and nozzle cap. The nozzle can easily fall out, so tilt the body slightly downward while unscrewing the cap to keep it safe. Now you can pull the nozzle out. Keep all these parts separated. When preparing to soak the parts in acetone, remember that only the nozzle cap has a black rubber O-ring. Since rubber is vulnerable to acetone, make sure you remove this ring first. Inside the body you'll see this gold part. This is the needle guide, which prevents paint from flowing backward. Normally you do not need to remove this, but I'll do it today for demonstration purposes. You will need a specialized tool for this too. This tool is included in Gaahlerie's Pro Care kit, but you can also find it sold separately online. When removed, you can see the needle guide and its Teflon seal. This Teflon seal is what prevents backflow, and because it is Teflon, it is perfectly safe in solvents. This means the needle guide can be soaked in acetone, so you really do not need to remove it unless there is a major issue. Even during full maintenance, the needle guide usually stays in place. There's also a white O-ring at the cup joint. Since it is Teflon, it is also safe to soak. Just remember, white Teflon is acetone safe. Black or brown rubber is not. The body, the nozzle cap, the air cap, the main lever, the needle chucking guide, the cup and the cup lid. These 8 parts are all ready for their acetone bath. While those are soaking, let's maintain the air valve. When you first buy an airbrush, the internal part called the valve rod is usually coated in grease from the factory. Grease has high viscosity, which can make the action feel heavy. Specifically, it can cause the main lever to return sluggishly. Manufacturers use grease because the airbrush might sit in a warehouse for over 1 year. Oil would evaporate over time, potentially causing defects, so they use thick grease for long-term protection. However, since grease makes the action feel stiff, I prefer to clean it off and switch to oil. Insert your tweezers into the gold valve screw and unscrew the valve assembly. The valve spring, the valve rod. Wipe off all that thick factory grease with a Kim wipe. Apply just a tiny drop of maintenance oil. Then reassemble the valve. It should move smoothly and effortlessly now. For regular maintenance, you do not need to take the valve apart every time. If it feels stiff, just add a drop of oil to the rod and move it up and down. I also cleaned the factory grease off the adjustment knob with acetone and switched to oil there as well. For the needle, put a little acetone on a Kim wipe and wipe it clean. Apply a tiny bit of oil to the middle section and spread it with your fingers. Just a tiny amount is more than enough. As a side note, when acetone breaks down grease, it creates debris. While the oil dissolves, other components turn into solid residue that floats in the jar. If that residue gets inside the airbrush, it can cause malfunctions. That's why I avoid using grease entirely. Usually 5 minutes is enough for soaking. If you've used the brush heavily, 15 minutes is perfectly fine. Now let's put it all back together. Remember, assemble from the front. Dock the nozzle into the nozzle cap. Then screw the assembly into the body. The air cap. The air control knob. Use the 8mm nut driver. Tighten the air valve. If you look from the top, you can see the tip of the valve rod. Place the main lever right on top of that tip. The needle chucking guide is a major moving part, so make sure to apply some oil to keep it moving smoothly. Next, the spring. The spring case. Tighten it lightly with the driver. Then the adjustment knob. Loosely attach the chucking nut and slide the needle in. Be very careful here, sir. Once you feel it lightly seat at the front, tighten the nut firmly. Finally, attach the handle. Phew, all done. Let's quickly go over the maintenance for the Tamiya SPRAY-WORK HG Airbrush 3 Superfine. Disassemble starting from the back. The handle, the needle stop screw, pull out the needle. Remove the stop screw, the spring stopper, the needle spring, the needle chuck, the main lever, the air valve, the paint cup, the needle cover, the nozzle cover. Use the included wrench to remove the nozzle. Place the nozzle and needle safely on a wipe. The main lever, the needle chuck, the nozzle cover, the needle cover, the paint cup lid. The paint cup has a black O-ring. This ring is difficult to remove, so I avoid soaking the entire cup in acetone. The main challenge is the body. The part I want to soak most, the body, cannot be submerged. The reason is this black O-ring inside the air valve section. I usually do not remove this, but I'll do it today for the sake of explanation. It is hard to get out and easy to damage, so you should not touch it unless it needs replacement. This rubber ring is crucial because it directly affects the feel and action of the main lever. The lever fits through this ring, which seals the air while you press down the valve. If acetone hits this ring, it will swell up and ruin the lever's action. Because it is so hard to remove, you simply cannot soak the Tamiya body in acetone. Getting that ring back in is also quite a struggle, so I only soak the body up to the point where the acetone won't touch the ring, and then I clean the rest with a brush. Wipe the needle with acetone. Add 1 drop of oil. Spread it with your finger. The nozzle can be soaked, but if you do not want the old sealant turning into debris in your jar, clean it separately. Use a brush and acetone to dissolve the old sealant. Once it is mostly gone, you can give the nozzle a final soak in acetone. Tamiya's air valve has a similar design. Unscrew it using your tweezers. Wipe off the factory grease and replace it with oil. Since I used urethane, I recommend soaking for 5 to 10 minutes. Now for the nozzle sealant. Take a rice grain sized amount of sealant on a mixing stick and hold the nozzle with tweezers. If you are not comfortable using tweezers, Creo sells a very handy tool for this. I'm used to tweezers, so I'll stick with them. Apply sealant only to the threads and screw it back into the body. Final tighten with the wrench, but be extremely careful not to over tighten. It can break easily under pressure, so use a very gentle touch. Wipe off any excess sealant with a Kim wipe. The nozzle cover, the needle cover, the air valve, the main lever, click the lever several times to help the oil and O-ring settle in for smooth operation. The needle chucking guide, the needle spring, the spring stopper, loosely attach the stop screw. Slide the needle in. Once it is carefully seated at the front, tighten the screw, attach the handle, and we're done. Great work! Finally, let's look at some common maintenance pitfalls for beginners. The first is when you are inserting the needle. Naturally, you focus entirely on the needle chuck. That is fine. But once the tip passes the chuck, stop for a second. Recheck the position of the main lever. What happens if the main lever is slightly lifted? The needle is designed to pass through a specific hole in the lever. If the lever is raised, the needle will hit the bottom of the lever instead of the hole and the tip will get crushed. You might be able to fix it, but usually it requires a brand new needle. That is a painful and unnecessary expense. So always double check that the lever is seated properly before pushing the needle all the way in. With the Gaahleri Mobius, the lever just sits on top of the valve, so it can easily slip out if you tilt the body. Please be careful. Now, for my final thoughts, let's wrap this up. As for spray performance, in my personal opinion, both brushes are equally capable. Both are easy to handle once you get the hang of their quirks. However, Gaahleri offers more features like on-hand air control and adjustable trigger tension. You can really feel the momentum of the new era. Tamiya, on the other hand, is simple. In both function and design, you could call it classic or perhaps just unchanged. Even after 5 years of use and replacing parts as needed, it remains an excellent tool that hasn't lost its edge. When it comes to maintenance, Gaahleri wins by a landslide. You can submerge the entire body. The nozzle is large and hard to lose, and there is no messy sealant work required. For beginners and especially those working with urethane, I believe the Gaahleri is much easier to manage. However, keep in mind that Gahleri's Teflon seals will eventually wear out and need to be replaced. Also, the Mobius 0.2mm comes with a 1/10 of an ounce cup, that is a 3 milliliters capacity. It is quite small, so keep that in mind. Larger 1/3 of an ounce cups are available separately. Regarding parts availability, Gahleri's website makes it very easy to find and buy what you need. I ordered some parts from China, and they arrived here in Tokyo in about 10 days. I hope they make parts available on Amazon in the future for faster delivery. Of course, for those living in Japan, you can order parts directly from Tamiya's Japanese website. Please keep in mind that this is a domestic service within Japan, so the ordering process is a bit unique compared to a standard online shop. So while there are pros and cons to both, the price is almost the same. Ultimately, it comes down to your personal preference. Since the Mobius has been on the market for a while, I would love to hear from those of you who have used it. Please leave your thoughts in the comments. This video is sponsored by Gaahleri. I have a discount coupon for you. If you want to get this performance at a great price, check out the links in the description. The Amazon coupon is time limited, so grab it while you can. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe and hit the like button. Next time, I'm planning to make a video on the Swallowtail airbrush if I have the time.